Stardate 301386.75. I don't think that's right, but welcome to Star Trek Discovery Pod, a kind of smart, kind of funny podcast about new and classic Trek. Tonight, we will be breaking down and breaking out of a Cardassian prison as we finally get some new Trek with the premiere of season 2 of Lower Decks. I'll be your captain for this evening on this small crew, and with me on the view screen is
Grant. It's
Hi,
me.
Grant.
Grant.
Mike and Clyde are going to be on the Titan for the evening, so we'll get their hot frakes on this premiere hopefully next week. But before we dive into Strange Energies, Grant, would you mind telling folks how they can support this show of ours?
Of course. There's a bunch of ways that you can help support us. The first one would be if you're over here on YouTube already, just go ahead and hit that subscribe button. If you're listening to us on a podcast, you can also subscribe there. That helps us out. Giving us ratings and reviews on whatever platform that you listen to us on is very helpful and constructive. Sharing us, of course, with your friends. You know all these things.
Mhm.
Another fantastic way to support this little venture is to go to patreon.com/Star Trek Pod. And at that little site, you can make a per episode pledge. And if you give us $2 per episode, you can join us over on our Slack channel where we have a bunch of welcoming, friendly, lovely Trekkie fans who
The
join us
best
over
of
there.
fans.
Yeah, we do little watch parties on different episodes and discussions and deep dives and criticism of Grant's unfamiliarity with Star Trek and all of it. It's all welcoming and it's all loving, and we would love to have you come join us there. Patreon.com/Star Trek Pod.
Yes. And like Cheapy has mentioned, it is a small crew for this evening. So make sure if you want to join us in the discussion, we'd love to know what you thought about this episode of Lower Decks. How is this season 2 premiere? Just type in the word POD in all caps. That's POD pod in all caps in your comment, and we'll try to flag that for later on in the show. But let's go ahead and get into some of this sci-fi stuff. Strange Energies was written by Mike McMahon and directed by Jason Zurich. Jason, who directed, has worked on a ton of animated shows. Checked out his IMDb, including the new DuckTales revival, which I didn't realize was out. I'll have to check out. Lost in Oz, Moonbeam City, and The Legend of Korra. So quite the resume.
Wow.
But yeah, I think up first, we got to dive into some hot frakes.
Which one do I choose? Which one do I choose? I'm going to go...
Excellent.
You want to go first? I think you should take it away.
Sure. Yeah. So I thought this was a great season 2 premiere. There were some really fun parallels to the season 1 premiere of the show. There were some really excellent references to both itself and old Trek. And I think, it's just like everything feels like a system now, right? Like we're a little familiar with the characters. We get to dive right in with the jokes. We're picking right back up with a lot of these storylines, but enough into the future of their sort of story arcs so that it feels interesting and stuff is happening and we're kind of catching up on where we are with them. But yeah, I mean, overall, I thought this was a great episode. I watched it twice today, and there's like so many layers of jokes that I think it's like definitely worth a multiple watch as a premiere. So high five to the whole crew. I thought the animation also looked like maybe better. I don't know if they got like a slightly bigger budget or if they had more time, but like everything just had that like slightly shinier. The details in the background were a little sharper. There's more facial expressions on the characters. So shout out to the whole crew, top to bottom. I thought everyone felt really natural, and it felt really great to be back in the Lower Deck universe.
I imagine they have a lot of the cell animation already stockpiled at this point, so they already have a library of stuff they can pull from, and then just building on that with each new season makes it a little bit easier and be like, oh, we already have these facial expressions and these poses when the character is going to be doing this, or we have a sequence of how they move. That's just a guess. I don't operate in this world. I will say my hot freak is that I thought this was pretty fun. It's there were elements of this that uh I think I had a little bit greater expectations for grandiosity and scope, especially
Mm.
coming off of where the first season ended. That this one kind of falls a little bit back into story of the week hijinks, I guess, in a way. It's okay, but um, that said, I do appreciate um, the further exploration of the relationship between Mariner and her mom. I thought Tendi was a little bit relegated to being an overbearing cartoon. I mean, literally a cartoon, but as well.
Mhm.
Um, and I, I I think that there is something lacking with the cohesiveness of the group without Boimler there, I guess.
Hmm.
So I would like to have Boimler back. That said, I liked the continuing what's his name, Jack, is
Ransom.
Ransom.
Mhm.
Yeah. I like everything that went on with his storyline of him just kind of uh, getting god powers and just using it to want to be like a dude who works out all
Just
the time. Vain. I found a lot of that really funny. It kind of played off of the general tropes of what we get with someone who gets godlike powers, and this is just like narcissism, but in a different type of way.
Ego
Uh,
and narcissism. What a concept.
yeah. Yeah. So it's fun. I think there's more for us to kind of discuss together about what this means for the larger arc of the season versus this kind of one-off episode. And I mean, yeah. Well, I guess I will leave it there and say, how did you feel about that?
Yeah, I mean, I can get the frustration. I think we could probably why don't we jump into like Rutherford and Tendy's sort of relationship because I think that is I think where I'm hearing some of your criticisms, which I get as far as like Tendy feeling this like overbearingness, but I also feel like she was so close to losing probably her closest friend on the ship at the end of last season. So if you remember, there's the big explosion. We lose Shax, right? Who dies at the end of last season. Potentially his name is still in the credits, which I think is interesting. So
Flashbacks? I don't know.
to be determined. Um, but like he loses his implant and they have to redo all this reconstruction, right? And so I think she's just feeling overly protective of her friend in a way.
I got that, and I thought there
Yeah.
was good payoff for that at the end when she kind of confronts and accepts it, but or admits to it rather. But I
Mhm.
think that throughout the rest of the episode, it almost felt it it felt like filler or even like a step backwards for the character and the relationship. Um, rather than we ultimately get the growth payoff,
Yeah.
but
And I
I didn't like seeing her kind of reverting to that and not respecting him and his changes. He obviously went through something, and
Mhm.
she's trying to stunt him.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting since we did kind of reset totally on Rutherford, right? Because he has all these memory losses, and so I thought it was clever that they're resetting us with, like, he's literally going on a date with the same person in the premiere, so I thought that was very funny. Um, I do think, like, comedically, there were some uh payoffs to their situation because Rutherford running through the hall just being like, I just want to swim with girls was probably
Yeah.
one of my favorite lines of the whole episode, along with fuck pears by the end of it.
Yeah.
um
Okay. Fair.
so I think there was some solid like comedic jokes that felt worth that maybe perhaps step back for the characters. um I also thought that it was so funny to me that the two of them are having this like such nice little quiet moment in the hallway while this giant like ransom face is like constantly going by and like trying to eat the ship in the background.
Right.
um So yeah, I can see where it feels like we've taken a step back with those characters, but I will say I don't know if you got a chance to watch the Ready Room with Will Wheaton for this particular episode. I think they're only doing two. It seems like they're doing one here at the premiere and one at the season finale for this series. But there's a moment in the Ready Room where they let them all tell us a spoiler, but they bleep out the spoilery details. And it seems like we're going to finally, what I could sort of read between the lines is I think we're going to finally get Tendi's full backstory this season. So I think we're going to get more exploration into her. So it might be this moment of like resetting at the beginning to remember how far she's come by the time we get to the end.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's kind of me being a little bit petty. I just think that it felt like a little bit of a small stakes kind of retread, and it's playing off of the audience's will they won't they tendencies with any sort of kind of pairing like that. And even though she's very comfortably kind of sticking to, no, I want this to be just my platonic friendship here, we the audience are led to believe and read into it that there might be something else going on there as well. And I don't know. It doesn't bug me that much. It was fine. I think I had higher hopes for this episode that things would kind of pick up in a sharper trajectory of everyone kind of growing beyond their ensign rank, and instead it's kind of everyone is still operating within that same system. And in a way, Mariner kind of she starts off maybe in that leadership role, and by the end of the episode drops back down to, is she pushing herself? Is she trying to be more within this status, or not really?
Yeah, I don't know. I guess it is lower decks, so we got to keep him as ensigns for a while, right?
I don't know. They named it that, but
I mean, we'll kind of see. But yeah, I do think the dynamic between Mariner and the captain is very funny in that they have like created this lie around each other that this is like a great way for them to be working together. And in reality, it's like neither one of them is happy with this situation at all, but they're like, this is what it should be, right? So we have to be happy about this. So I thought that was very funny. I did really enjoy the cold open to this episode with Mariner's like workout regimen. And I was like, man, if I had a holodeck and I could just go on like spy-y type missions instead of having to go to the gym, that sounds way more fun.
Yeah. The payoff of that was pretty great. And this is the first episode that I've watched with my daughters.
Oh, fun.
They're 8 and 6 years old. So most of the stuff is either over their head or inappropriate. But anyway, I still watch that with them, and then I had to like pause and keep explaining as best I could for my weak understanding of Trek what's going on, especially like the holodeck. I'm like, they have this imaginary universe and you can work out within this like holodeck construct, and they're like, what's a construct? But that said, I like that play off of the holodeck, and that other girl comes in is just annoyed with her and like, this is how you work out.
Yeah. And Jennifer is the Andorian that she shoved in season 1, being like, get out of the way, Jennifer. And then there's a couple, I mean, the episodes are so rich with references, and like on second watch it was like, oh, she's like, I know we're not supposed to have interpersonal conflict, which is something that like Gene Roddenberry had when he was working on the original series, and then into 90s Trek used to drive the writers nuts because it was the idea that like they couldn't be mad at each other in a way, like
everything has to be very copacetic.
Yeah, there couldn't be like, I just don't like them, and there's like no reasoning behind it, which I thought was really funny. And then the Cardassian prison escape, there's a bunch of references, like when Boimler's like, they're making me look at lights, that's a reference to an episode of Next Generation when Picard is being tortured by the Cardassians.
4 lights, there's 5 lights, 4 lights, or something like that.
Yes.
Okay. I've seen plenty of like memes and whatever about this, but I've never seen this episode.
Yeah, so that's the reference there. But I also think it's funny that Mariner uses these like workouts also as like a therapy. I was because at first when it first started, I was like, oh, is this something her therapist is making her do? Because she's like talking about her relationship with her mom with this like Cardassian torture person.
Right. Yeah, I was like, oh, this whole thing is a therapeutic hologram, but no, I guess not. It's just her working through it herself.
I mean, I get, workouts are good for mental health too, but so that was like a funny combination of those two things.
Who's Gary Mitchell?
Gary Mitchell is from the second, or it's from the redo of the pilot for the original series. And so so the Cage is the original pilot to Star Trek, which has Captain Pike in it, but they redid it to make it have Captain Kirk. And so they redid the pilot episode. And essentially there's two crew members who get godlike telepathic powers, one of which is Gary Mitchell.
Okay.
And so Gary Mitchell, they also reference Gary Mitchell in season 1, episode 1 of Lower Decks, because Mariner's talking to Boimler and she makes a Gary Mitchell reference and he doesn't know who that is, because it is like such a obscurely early reference to the series. But they bring it all the way back for this one yet again. So who does inevitably get his powers are ended by being crushed under a boulder.
I love the contrivance in the beginning of the episode of Mariner just really wanting to wash these buildings to show this this civilization what it's like to just maintain your property and make it clean and look nice. That's her thing. And what unfolds is her cleaning off an ancient relic that basically imbues him with that godlike power. And it was kind of ridiculous and silly. But as I was thinking about it, I was like, yeah, I mean, her showing them like, oh, just cleaning up your city. That is like a good kind of noble Trek thing. I like that idea.
And then it has to go wrong.
Yeah, of course it goes wrong. But for a minute there, I was just like, oh yeah, I just want to see how it looks as like she's cleaning the building and like, oh, there's a sweet whale painting here. Is there some? We're gonna get something with the whales going on.
I mean, we all know the episode or the movie with the whales is the best one. Yeah, so we're on the planet with the Abergosians, which we've never seen before. So this is a new alien race for us in the series. And Randall Park is the voice of their leader.
Oh, I didn't catch that.
Who seems to be popping up everywhere. I hear his voice a lot lately. And yeah, so we get lots of references back to the original series episode. Which is called Where No Man Has Gone Before. So if you want to watch that at any point, Grant. It's kind of a fun story. Yes, thank you. Because at the time, I don't know if you know that Lucille Ball was essentially in charge of the production studio that created Star Trek.
What?
Yes.
No, I didn't know that one at all.
Yeah. So she was essentially she ran Desilu Productions, which is where the original pilot was produced. And she was just like, hey, listen, I understand you don't like this original pilot. Let us do it again. Let them do it again. And so they did. And that's where we found the chemistry of Kirk and Spock. And so now we have Star Trek. So without Lucille Ball, no Trek.
Awesome.
Crazy.
All
Crazy,
right.
right?
All right. The more you know.
But let's see. Oh, I thought so the other big reference is to the giant head and the giant head in space.
Right.
So the godlike head that there's a couple of different references in the original series. You've probably seen this on the internet. It gets memed a lot, but it's this giant green hand that comes up and grabs the Enterprise. I don't know if you've seen that one.
I don't think I have.
It's supposed to be the hand of the god Apollo. And then
okay, all right, fair.
And then of course in Final Frontier, the movie, which I know we have watched, remember there's the giant god that they meet at the end.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes. So
Yeah. There's something it reminded me a lot of Rick and Morty, which the animation departments, a lot
Mhm.
of things very similar between these shows. But just just the giant head beaming through space and coming in trying to chomp at them because that's all he's got is his mouth to try and eat him. Um, a lot of that is really silly and just kind of fun. So yeah, I don't know. I was enjoying those aspects as well. What what I keep kind of coming back to though is we have this team separated, and I'm wondering what we might see as far as what they want to do with this season. Um,
yeah, so Mike
I,
McMahon in the he live tweeted the episode this evening, and he did reassure everybody that essentially we're going to get like a larger check-in on Titan with Boimler next episode. Um, and I think I saw in an interview somewhere like eventually the crew is going to have to get back together, right? Like the crew gets back together, but there's going to be some adventures apart for a little while.
I mean, it seemed like what we were leaving off with Boimler freaking out as Riker and crew on Titan just kind of go on a wild adventure, which everyone else seems down for, and Boimler just seems too high strung. It's like I can't handle that. Is essentially that's what's going to be going on. This is going to be an environment that is too much for Boimler. As much as he thought he wanted to just climb the ranks and be at the top, he can't handle an environment that is that crazy. And so he's gonna like the lower stress of the lower decks with his crew and his family. And I'm guessing that's why he would come back. Maybe they have to go rescue him.
Potentially, yeah, that could be interesting. Because I also think they've set up some interesting things specifically for the whole crew of the Cerritos, right? Because we get that moment between Captain Freeman and Admiral Freeman, where he is essentially like, you're on the up and up. If you all can kind of prove yourselves, you could kind of potentially move over to this like bigger and better ship,
Mm.
so I think a lot of our leadership crew is going to start feeling that pressure that she's now set up for herself when she's
Right.
just like everything is going swimmingly. Of course I'm going to excel even though I have the D team of,
A lot
of
of
the
people holding me back
Federation.
or actively jeopardizing things for me.
Yes, and a daughter who consistently wants to get thrown in the brig. Um so I think we've set up like an interesting point for Captain Freeman to try to prove herself in some way, which could potentially lead to more missions that maybe feel more like a Titan style mission as she's trying to prove herself. So potentially that could be where we see these two things kind of intertwine.
Do you think it is in the interest or even the best interest of the show and the creators of the show to have these characters grow and evolve and kind of move beyond this lower decks thing, or do you think the the conceit is too strong and they want to keep them a little bit stunted, a little bit in this sort of arrested development, this
Yeah.
station, so that it fits with the name Lower Decks and everything that's
I'm
going on there.
I mean, I feel like they're gonna have to always be the perpetual underdog to kind of fit what they've set up on this show, right? So like in order for us to be rooting for them throughout all of this, but they eventually figure out a way to get around it. I don't know. I mean, I would be interested to see how many new characters we get introduced because perhaps it is one of those things where like as people cycle, maybe the characters change out. Um, but I do feel like I mean, how long has like this have the kids on The Simpsons been kids? How long have the kids on South Park been kids? So it's like
Right.
we're probably not going to see a massive amounts of changes to their
And
full character arcs.
yeah, and that's kind of what I was curious if you see this show more in the lens of something like Simpsons or South Park or Family Guy or whatever, or is this more in the vein of Trek where we're going to see these characters grow and evolve and change and move into different stations and level up, and we're going to see the Cerritos go from maybe just being a second tier what is it called, not the the team that makes second contact, I guess, right? Isn't that what they do? um to maybe being the people who make first contact. And I think I would enjoy that journey more than just kind of the episode of the week with a show like this, because I think there's there's too many other shows that already do that other thing.
Yeah. I mean, I don't really I've seen episodes of Rick and Morty, but I'm not like super familiar with it as a show. Do those characters kind of grow and change?
Not lately.
No.
No, I mean they went through a few arcs where there was definitely an expansive world building kind of thrust to what that show is doing. And as part of that, it kind of reminded me of like Adventure Time, where you are really constructing more of this mythology of how that world exists. But with Trek, you already have a lot of that mythology already established. We don't need to. I mean, we'll find out here or there about like the Apergosians or other civilizations, right? But we're not looking to construct from the get-go what the world of the Federation and Trek is. So
I
it's
mean,
more of just the journeys of these characters.
yeah. I mean, we are kind of doing a little bit of world building because I do think the rules of this show are different from most of the other Trek shows we've seen, while it is canon, right? Like there are uh, different ways we're exploring this world because of the potential that animation allows us, right? To see different types of alien species, and like the pace doesn't have to be as like intense because this isn't a 45-minute to an hour long drama, right? Like we're at a 25-minute comedy.
Right.
So yeah, I don't know. That's an interesting question. I haven't seen I know there, like anime is probably the genre where the characters do go through like the most amount of like changes and growth, and like every season is kind of pushing towards that, right? Versus I think of something like the world of like Bob's Burgers, where again the characters do have growth, but it's like much slower and it is more of like the story of the week. So I'm not sure. I mean, I don't personally mind more of the story of the week format, but as long as there is that like continued growth and more interest and exploration of the characters as a whole.
That's what really grabbed my interest and started taking off in the first season was, Boimler getting the promotion and us seeing that Rutherford is highly capable in kind of any role he's kind of put into. Tendi is extremely driven and really smart. Mariner is a slacker, but if push comes to shove, she's a natural leader and a force to be reckoned with. So we see all these people that immediately prove they have extreme potential, and so with that, I'm interested in driving that, continuing to drive that forward, and seeing how they lend themselves to more than just kind of the wacky hijink of the week.
Yeah.
Personally, I mean, I'm still down for everything
Yeah.
else. I don't know why I'm being so complainy.
Julian, who I believe has gotten access to screeners, which is nice, had said without spoiling anything, with the Lower Decks peeps go through some super growth over the next few episodes. So I feel like we're probably going to get, I just don't think it's going to be that rapid pace. I don't think any of them are going to be lieutenants by the end of the second season.
No,
do you know what I mean?
No, fair. That's fair. Yeah, I just don't want it to be,
I mean, Harry Kim was an ensign for the entirety of Voyager, so
It's gonna be disappointing for Harry. Takako says, Pod, perhaps they're aiming for a hybrid format, episodic, but they don't forget what happened in the previous episodes. Yeah, it feels a little bit that way. And I would understand them kind of going in that direction and us getting like incremental, growth throughout the
Mhm.
season. Um, Man, this is just what I complained about the first season too. I just always complained about this.
You're gonna get proven wrong yet again.
I will. I'll get proven wrong. And that'll be
um,
okay. I think we had another comment right here I was going to jump to. Uh oh wait. This is going back a bit. This is just Julian Brown saying, "I love the consistency of Jennifer being Mariner's foil."
yeah, and I think it's fun that so Lauren Lapkus is the voice of Jennifer, who's like a
Oh, okay.
pretty well-known comedian and an improviser and actor, and so coming kind of from that same school of comedy, and I feel like grouping of comedians I see Tawny Newsome working with a lot, like Paul F. Tompkins and all of those crew. So it's nice to see. I like seeing these like groups of people who've all creatively worked together, all getting to do stuff together consistently.
Right.
Consistently, it makes me happy. So I also thought it was really funny. The character Stevens, who's like obsessed with Ransom in this episode, when they finally get down and he's reading Nightingale Woman to him, which is yet another reference to Where No Man Has Gone Before, which Gary Mitchell quotes from the poem Nightingale Woman. And the poem was actually written by Gene Roddenberry, but it's like in the world of like in the Star Trek universe, it was written in 1996 on the Caponius planet. So it's like,
Okay.
I was like, I have to know how this writer's room works. Like, if they like come up with this, like, how many passes at the script do they do to like jam pack it with references?
Enrich, enrich, enrich.
Yeah.
Yeah, it felt very Princess Bride right
Yes.
at the end, like pulling up to his bedside to read him a little tale, and I was like, "Oh, is it gonna be Princess Bride?" And then he said Nightingale thing. I was like, "I don't know what that reference is," but I was confident you would.
Yes,
Um,
I tried to do a bunch of research about all of the references because I'll like catch some of them, but then like it doesn't always. I'm like, oh, I know that's a reference, but I don't know quite to like what it's to. So then I'm just like Googling to figure it out. Because
we
even
see. Oh, what's up?
oh, I was gonna say because like when Mariner says Jack is going all ransom on the mount, that is a reference to a meme of like Kirk from the movie where anyway, it's like a video someone made of it's called Shatner on the Mount if you want to look it up. It's very funny.
Um, with Mariner, she seems to be burying her feelings about Boimler. We see in the very beginning that she's going through the holodeck scenario with the Cardassian, and she has the opportunity to save a hologram version of Boimler, and she's like, "Nah, screw you." Like
Yeah.
you say there, I'm not rescuing you. I'm not here for you because you abandoned me too. Um, and then later, when they're just kind of using his old bunk for storage, excess storage, which was also amusing. Um, she seems really stuck on this idea that he might have a much larger space to stay in, and she has this kind of unaddressed jealousy, obviously, um, and hurt feelings about what he did. So inevitably, when he comes back, that's going to be a point of conflict there,
Yeah.
bitterness there.
Well, I'm also interested because, like, if he has risen in rank on the Titan, even if he came back, he's potentially also still like of a higher officer rank. And so he could potentially be in charge of his friends, which would also be very funny
Hmm.
and create some
Do
very interesting conflicts.
do people ever get demoted in Trek? Like, do you
I'm
like get
sure it has
dropped in rank?
happened. I can't think of like, uh, I mean, they did it last season when Mariner was upped in rank and then they demoted her.
Man, I mean, being stuck on a ship for like 5 years and then just being like having like being demoted, like losing morale, that's got to be really rough. He's like, I can't even like beam out of here. I'm just stuck on this thing. Yeah, I feel for these people.
Yeah. I mean, it seems like the ships are pretty large because the space that Dana, whatever the name of Rutherford's date is that he went out with both this episode and the first episode of the
Oh,
first season,
right.
the Trill character. She says they're going to a specific, like I can't remember the name off the top of my head, but they're going to this like tank or whatever, which is technically like where people study sea creatures. So it's like if there's like a sea creature department on the ship, it's got to be absolutely massive.
Oh, Tom Paris apparently got demoted.
That's true. That is true.
There we go.
Yes.
WYSIWYG says, what about the ending on the Titan? So what we see is the Titan is being chased by ships that are firing at it, and they enter into some sort of black
Anomaly.
hole anomaly thing.
Mhm.
Don't really know what it is, but it seems to be swallowing them up and taking them to some mysterious place. And I've seen enough Trek to know that this is a common occurrence apparently in space. All these ships are just constantly just going into these black holes and wormholes and vortexes and nebulas and whatever. I don't even know.
All kinds of space anomalies. Yeah. What is it? They said like prepare for gluing something or other. Like,
Yeah. I'm very curious. I imagine that next week's episode will be picked up with
them going into the
with
hole.
the Titan. But does that mean that we have Riker? Like that's Jonathan Frakes' voice, right?
Yep.
He's doing the
Yes, all of those jazz references are in fact Jonathan Frakes doing all the voice work.
Yeah, something glue on.
Yeah,
I don't even know what that is.
gluon disruption. That's what they say. Prepare for a gluon disruption. I don't know what that means, but I'm excited to find out. But yeah, I think they've written that character to be so both I think true to Riker, but like the comedy version. Like, what's the absurdist version of Riker? What is Riker unhinged? You know, who's making just an extreme amount of jazz references to licks and encounters. Like,
you know, from my limited exposure to Riker, he seems both kind of like an adrenaline junkie and a little bit of like a himbo. So that's my impression of the guy.
Yeah, very shoot from the hip when he's just like, someone make me a hole. Let's get out of here. Like, punch me a hole. I think Riker is going to be really fun.
So what is Boimler doing? He's sitting in like the seat that Data would sit in, right?
Yeah, so it's someone who's a part
navigating or driving.
It's probably like navigation. Yeah, I would assume, because it seems like the guy on the other side is someone who's more in charge of weapons. So it seems that Boimler is more in charge of navigation, but there's lots of people on that bridge doing stuff. So
right, I never know what those two seats are. It's like one was Sulu and the other one was the other dude, Chekhov, right? They would both sit up front.
Yeah, and Sulu was the pilot.
Sulu was driving on the other side, but
Yes.
Data would sit there with Geordi on the other side. I don't know what these people do.
Yeah, I mean the stations all have their purpose. I mean, if we think of Kayla and Oo on Disco, right? Like Kayla is more of the pilot, whereas like Oo is kind of more navigation and weapons.
Okay.
So
well, whatever Boimler's doing, he's not cut out for it.
I don't think so.
No.
He seemed to not be handling the pressure very well. If you were in the Lower Decks universe, would you want to be on the Titan or the Cerritos?
Oh, I mean, the Cerritos is laid back. That's low stakes right there. That seems pretty easy for me. I don't need to be right where the action and adrenaline are, because I would die. I would be that red shirt who died right away.
You'd walk on in a red shirt and they would just know.
Yeah, they wouldn't let me on in the main deck with everyone else. They'd be like, nah, you're gonna be in the hallway, you're gonna be one of the guys who gets thrown up against a wall and then sucked out into space. That's it. So no thank you. What about you?
I don't know. I mean, I think I would like to think that I could handle the Titan, but in reality, I'd probably enjoy being on the Cerritos more.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
seems. Although, I mean, what we're seeing, it's kind of awful every week too, with like zombie plague takeovers and
Mhm.
their ship getting taken over by the Reavers or Ravagers or whoever too. So
Yeah, they've got a lot going on.
I'm a lower deck lifer, just like Mariner. This is accurate. I don't need character growth. They need character growth. Me, I can just stay
Static.
right where I am.
Static forever.
Jude Beacom says in the lower decks era, the two seats at the front are the helm and ops.
Oh, okay, that makes sense.
All
Thanks,
right.
Jude. Um, but yeah, I don't know. I really enjoyed this episode all the way through. I'm excited to see what the rest of this season has to offer. I think Tawny Newsome and Don Lewis have great character chemistry together as mother and daughter.
Right.
There's so many, like when Captain Freeman is yelling, is like both giving praise, but then at the end gets so frustrated when Ransom is like, "I will be the only captain." She's like, "The fuck you will not."
It's
uh,
perfect.
it was really great there, and then yeah, I think they've set up some interesting plot lines. I'm excited to learn more backstory about our characters too, because I we got some glimpses into um Mariner's back history last season, so I hope we
Mhm.
get to see more about everybody else's as we move forward.
And I want to see the return of that their rock band, their talent show
Yes.
rock band.
The choo choo dance.
Yes. More of that, please.
More choo choos. Um yeah, I mean, the only two of us this evening, so we've had a lot of time to fill. Is any feel free in the chat, y'all, if you have anything else you'd like to add or get our opinions on. But
If you do have any questions and comments, you know to hit us up with POD over on the side chat, and we'll bring that up as well.
yeah, I'm trying to think if there were any other references I wanted to bring up. Oh, the sonic power washing that you brought up, Grant. So it's not just a power washer, it's a sonic power washer, which we've had sonic showers on ships before. So instead of having to get doused with water, essentially it's like energy beams are cleaning you, which is interesting.
Mm. Julian says, "Who are you most excited to see grow this season?"
I think Tendi, I really want to learn more about Tendi and see where she sort of goes. We see her, honing her skills as far as how to protect her friend to the point where she's willing to remove his brain and freeze it so that she can fix it for him. So I'm excited to see some more from Tendi. What about you, Grant?
Yeah, Tendi would probably be my first pick. Rutherford as well. I think those two just constantly get relegated to the B plot, but I think there's a lot of interesting things going on with both of them, and uh, I would like to see um, what each of them brings to the table get recognized and them get the respect and accolades they deserve for that. Wizzwig says, "Do you think kicking Jerry O'Connell in the balls will be a recurring theme?"
I mean, I think they would all love nothing more than to hear Jerry O'Connell consistently having to voice getting kicked in the balls in a voiceover booth. I imagine that would be a very silly recording session.
uh, Chippy says, I saw something that suggests Freeman and Riker were the Boimler and Mariner in the past.
Mm. That would be fun to see how Freeman might have some connection with Riker.
Yeah, they were good buddies. I mean, did we? I guess we got hints that they did have a friendly relationship,
Mm-hmm.
but
Mm-hmm.
was there a little bit of tension and hostility between them as well, like a fractured relationship? I don't
I don't
recall.
know. I don't know. We'll have to see.
Karen says it was cool having Missy Pyle from Galaxy Quest voice the Cardassian interrogator. I didn't recognize that was her.
I didn't either, but that's a great reference.
The intro title sequence Man, that feels more Galaxy Quest to me than Star Trek.
I
Uh,
think
the music, I think, in particular, but
they use a lot of the original series like music in that theme. There's like
oh,
a
do
lot of
they?
musical references in there.
It,
Yeah.
it felt like parody to me, but maybe I'm just not as familiar with the old school
Um,
Trek, and so everything feels parody to me.
yeah. I mean, they did change up the title sequence. I don't know if you noticed, but there's like different ships in that battle scene where it used to just be with Borg cubes and like Romulan ships. Now there's um a couple of different kinds that have to look up exactly which ones. But
Home Chicky says, who will be Mariner's sidekick next week since it's no longer her mom and Boimler's still gone?
I
Will we
mean,
even see them next week? I don't know.
I don't know. I mean, it might just be like this week, but in reverse, right? Like we'll get a bunch of time with Boimler and maybe less time with Mariner and everyone on the Cerritos. We'll have to see.
This is what Trek loves to do. That's what they did with the third season of Discovery. You
Right.
know, they start one episode on the ship and one on the planet with, you know, the two
Hmm.
groups separated. Um, or you know, it was one with what's her name? Burnham, and
Hmm.
then the ship. Yeah.
Yep.
So I don't know. Jennifer. It'll be Jennifer. Her foil will have to be her lackey as well.
That would be funny. I was able to find so the new ships. There's the Borg cubes, Romulan warbirds, and now there's Pakled ships from the season 1 finale. A few
Hmm.
Klingon birds of prey, and just less Borg cubes.
Yeah. Okay. Well, cool. I think should we wrap it up here then?
I think so. Yeah. This was fun. I'm really excited for the rest of the season and also stoked next week we'll hopefully have the full crew in place. Fingers crossed. I will be on a road trip next week, so I'm hoping my hotel has decent Wi-Fi.
Oh, yeah. Very excited for you for that.
Yes.
I should be here. So
Great. We'll figure it out. It could just be Grant answering your questions about Star Trek. What an
oh
idea.
my god.
Just guessing what you think the answers would be.
I can do it. I can. It's gonna be awkward. You guys, I will just rope all of you. I'll just pull everyone else in and be like, here's a link. Come join me on StreamYard. We're gonna talk about this together.
Yeah, this will be fun. All right. Well, thanks everybody for joining us. Remember, you can find us live on YouTube every Thursday talking about the rest of this Lower Decks season. Grant, can you remind them where else they can find us?
Yes. The call to action is subscribe, rate, and review. And join us over on patreon.com/Star Trek Pod if you haven't already done that. You, of course, can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Star Trek Pod. And shout out to Karen, who helps run our Twitter, and James Worm, who, well, I don't think he runs our Instagram anymore, but big thanks to him for all the work that he did building it up at that point. And thanks so much for joining us here on Star Trek Discovery Pod. We're going to be back next week.
Yeah, we'll see you all then. Bye. Live long and prosper.